Hi, my name is Eric Attenby. I'm an enthusiast for all things nautical and aerospace. I served for 22 years in the U.S. Submarine Force and have been supporting it for the last 14 years since retirement. I've been an aviation enthusiast since I was 10. Please join me while I pursue my passions through first-person experience in history, exploring aircraft, ships, and historic sites that have changed the world, and for some that are truly off the beaten path. Welcome to the Pacific Northwest and the Museum of Flight in Seattle, Washington, home to the first 747, the original Queen of the Skies. Tail number November 7470. She first flew in February of 1969, with the type entering service in early 1970. After completion of flight testing, it was retained by Boeing, where it served as a test bed for new technologies until her last flight in April of 1995. She was extensively restored in 2013 and 2014 to her original configuration. A total of 205 of the Dash 100 models were produced before Boeing started an iterative design improvement cycle that still continues to this day. As of the recording of this video, 56 years after the first flight, there is still one active Dash 100 model. It serves as an aerial tanker with the Iranian Air Force. Now we're going to take a look around the outside of the aircraft here, starting with the forward, the nose gear here. The fairing doors are open, obviously, and then, whenever they're shut, they form a nice, smooth fairing over it. You can look up in and see the volume that this takes up. Control cables and electrical connections coming down to the nose gear. You can see the forward steering lights there, as well as the hydraulic cylinders that control the actual steering or rotation of the nose gear. Those are control cables that you see there coming down to each of the hydraulic cylinders to push-pull to actually transmit mechanically the signal up. Now we're going to take a look inside the forward electronics bay. This is above the keel of the aircraft and below what would be the first class. This has all of the communications, electronics, flight control, computers, and everything that you would expect. That door we just looked at was what we saw from the outside looking up. And this 3D engine is located on the museum's website, and I just did a screen record to show you what was in here because it is not accessible during the normal museum tour. And just pan around, show you electrical distribution, more of the cabling that is inside this space. And we'll roll around here to complete the 360-degree look. And that ladder goes up to what would be the floor of the first class section of the cabin. Okay, this is the forward cargo hold door. The 747 was one of the first aircraft that had provisions for loading cargo containers to make loading large amounts of cargo and freight much easier than just doing it hand by hand, one item at a time. So that would be where they would enter it. This is the inlet for air coming into air conditioner pack 3 for cooling air across the heat exchanger. And I'll take you down to show you where that discharges here in just a second. So air in here goes through a heat exchanger, and then it dumps the hot air from the exchanger in that louvered vent that you see there. Get a nice close-up look there. We'll see packs 1 and pack 2 on the other side of the aircraft when we walk down. Okay, now we're looking at the underside of the wing with the Kreuger Flaps here. You'll see there's an animation that shows here how the mechanism actually works. It rotates out, and it has a bullnose that articulates out with it as well to provide a better fairing and to get a greater control surface there. And just looking at the underside of the wing and just how massive it really is underneath here. So this is the JT9D high bypass turbofan engine. This one is with the thrust reverser engaged configuration. I'll kind of show you what that means here in a minute. That this is how the engines provide stopping thrust. That portion that you see pushes back, those air dams pop into place, and it allows thrust to be pushed in the forward direction, and then so about 5 times more thrust goes out the fan than out the back tailpipe here, so it provides a pretty significant amount of thrust. These little guys here are actually exhaust from the pre-cooler, from the bleed air coming off of the intermediate and high pressure compressors that provides air for one going into the cabin to for breathing air, but also to pneumatic systems like to start the other engines or to provide anti-icing air heat to the wings. And looking down here, that's the access port for the constant speed drive. That's the generator spins at a constant velocity no matter what the speed of the engine is. It's actually a pretty complicated little mechanism. And just going to look inside the front end of the fan here, and I'm going to zoom in and let you see just how you can see that little light gray section there. That's actually the inlet to the turbine. So that's all that the air coming into the actual turbine is ingested from. The rest of it is bypass or fan air. So a substantial portion of it is into the fan. So that's a 5-to-1 ratio. So 5 times more air goes around the engine than through it. And the engines were mounted on pylons. Early jet engines like that, we hadn't quite figured out yet how to get nice clean air flowing over the wings. So to keep vortices and dirty air from going over, they placed them on longer pylons. Modern designs, you'll see that those have shifted up and are almost attached directly to the wing with vortex generators to provide. And you can see this A4 Skyhawk here just to give you an idea of just how big the engines and the wings are. And out here to look at the edge of the starboard wing at the Kreuger flaps that you see there. And we'll head back around the number 4 engine here. And you can see the first 727 there for size comparison. Okay, we're going to come up here and take a look at the landing gear. These are very massive. You'll see the animation, or not actually an animation, a video here that shows the operation of them being retracted in. It's kind of pretty impressive whenever you look at the scope and scale of these things and that they fold up and then fare in to the fuselage. Okay, it takes a look at the landing gear. Okay, we're going to continue along here along the starboard side, kind of looking back here so you can get a good look at the landing gear. This is the APU, auxiliary power unit. This is mounted up in the tail, but it's a small jet engine that provides electricity and bleed air or pneumatic air to start the engines and to provide for power or air conditioning whenever you're remotely. And this just shows the configuration of where it is up in the tail. Later on, whenever I do the high look videos, you'll see that. And rear cargo door, and then the smaller cargo door here for onesie twosie type baggages. And these are going to come up here. This aircraft was modified to demonstrate aerial refueling. That was used to demonstrate it, and we sold one model of it to the Iranian Air Force, but that was whenever you get inside, you actually look out and see. But during proof of concept, it was tested with various aircraft. These two little doors that you see here, these are the outflow valves for the cabin pressurization. So whenever air comes into the cabin, these actually are what regulate and provide a path for air to go out. And we'll continue around here. This the port side does quite a bit of, I don't want to say interference, but the stairs and everything that come up to and then down from you don't get quite as good a look on the port side. And just look in here at the port side of the landing gear. And start to look out here at engines 2 and number 1 there. You can see the nacelles for the actual flaps here between engines 1 and 2, and then between engine 2 and the rest of the hull or fuselage. Gonna look back here towards it, and I'm gonna throw in a graphic here in just a second that show what the full flaps look like. So this is full flaps, 45 degrees, I believe is that, so you can see how far out they extend. They are three-piece Fowler flaps. Okay, we're going to continue out here around engine number 1. And engine was partially restored. It's got the partial deployment of the thrust reversers here, but you know, all of the fairings and everything for it are complete. And kind of take a look at the outboard of the port wing here. You can see the Kreuger flaps underneath the leading edge of the wing. Now we'll take a look at the number 1 engine. The 747 was delivered with 4 Pratt & Whitney JT9D high bypass turbofan engines in the wing-mounted configuration you see here. The new high bypass engines were more efficient, cleaner burning, quieter, and more powerful than previous generations of engines. The engine consisted of a single-stage fan, a 3-stage low-pressure compressor, an 11-stage high-pressure compressor, an annular combustor, a 2-stage high-pressure turbine that drove the high-pressure compressor, and a 4-stage low-pressure turbine driving the low-pressure compressor and the fan. Okay, we're going to continue on here, leaving engine number 1. One thing you'll notice is a little pitot tube up there on the front of the engine nacelle. It provides input, actual airspeed input as it is entering the engine for part of its control system. And going to go around the front here. Continue on looking underneath the wing here, the Kreuger flaps between the engine pylons. And number 2 engine here. You can see the landing lights there at near the wing root. And just looking back underneath the port wing here. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the inlet for cooling air for Pack 1 and Pack 2 for the air conditioning system. Those two go through the heat exchangers and dump these. You see the louvered vents here. They're kind of in a line, the forward one, and then one directly in line with it's kind of hard to see through the reflections there. And this was a test aircraft that had a lot of extra sensors and everything. That's kind of what you see, those little circles around it. And the characteristic 747-100 three-window or 6-window total configuration. And name of the aircraft, and then you have angle of attack sensors as well as pitot tubes there. And that concludes our kind of walk around the outside. Now, okay, this is the underside of the flight deck. You'll see the control cables and pulleys and everything that go along with here. The 747 was built with a control system that required actual control cable inputs to be translated from the cockpit out to the individual controlling hydraulic systems. So that's where each one of these goes. It's a push-pull to a particular hydraulic control valve or to component. So the aircraft is strung completely through, and we'll chase these down. But one of the first things I want to take you through is to show you this is actually what the cockpit of the aircraft looks like. This is using the 3D engine from the museum's website. So they put in a 3D imaging system so you can actually take a look around. I'm just scanning around to show you what it is. Obviously you had the pilot, co-pilot stations here, and then the flight engineer here. controlling all things mechanical, electrical, pneumatic, hydraulic for the aircraft. And lots of fuses and switches. And you see that door in the overhead there, that is an escape door for the cockpit for the flight crew. As a little descending device that you throw over the side, and then you can go out that way. And rotating back around here to take a look at the pilot and command station. And that's the flight deck for you. Now let's go take a look at the upper level lounge. This is done using the same 3D engine from the website. You have the stairs coming up from the lower deck here. This was initially outfitted as a lounge before airlines decided that they wanted to monetize having seats here. But you can see it's very spacious, but obviously dated decor. This was definitely a novelty for having something this posh. And we'll rotate around back through the 360 degrees here before we go back down to the main deck to continue our way aft. Okay, now we'll pick back up where we left off here on the main deck. As you can see, it's obviously a test aircraft, open architecture so that they could install different things. You'll see the control cables, test cables, and everything running through the overhead, through the raceways. Yeah, we're going to continue chasing the control cables from the cockpit out here to the port wing, where they'll drop down and turn 90 degrees out to the operate the flaps, ailerons, landing gear, things of that nature. Continue on here, and you'll see that the control cables, some of them take a turn, and they'll rotate down and then out into the wing for controlling. And gives you a good idea, too, how much space is above the luggage overhead bins whenever you're on an aircraft. And continuing around, this is a test antenna that you see here that runs along this raceway up along the top here in the little basket the drogue to pull it along. I mentioned earlier when we were outside that this aircraft was a demonstrator for potentially being a KC-33 refueling. That's my minion Bob there. But this was the controlling station for it, where the boom operator would lay down, observe the aircraft, fly the boom down, pump fuel to retrieve the boom from. So it was only one ever sold, and that was to the Iranians, and it is still, as of today, still flying. And just the aft hemispherical dome, pressure dome there. And look up in here at the overhead just so you can see control cables, electrical cables, and just everything running through there. Now we'll make our way back forward, get another good look here at the totality of the main deck, and make our way up here to where the test engineers would have seated. And then you see here these series of barrels. Those are ballast that they could move different types of water weight into and around to simulate conditions for the aircraft during testing. And that concludes taking a look at the inside. Now we're going to go for some walk-around views outside. Thanks for sticking around all the way to the end. I really appreciate all of the views, likes, comments, and especially those who subscribe to the channel. I really enjoy hearing from those that have firsthand experience with this aircraft. Keep the comments coming. If you're curious about how I get the high-level shots, I use a GoPro Hero 11 Black in combination with a 20-foot extendable pole with the gimbal stabilizer. And for the ground level shots, I use a Samsung S22 Ultra